Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to a new video. So this video is a bit more of a low-key type of video because I wasn't planning on making a video on this film. I thought it would be a decent time, but anything to write home about, nothing special enough for me to sit down and record a review for this. But I was wrong in the worst way possible. Now, before I start talking about this film, I do want to clarify that I have no attachment to Mortal Kombat as a franchise, whether it be the video games, whether it be the movies, whether it be comic books or the lore behind it. I know practically nothing, so I'm not judging this as an adaptation of a prior story. I am judging this as an action film I saw in the cinemas. And I have to say, this was garbage. And I sat there after I watched the film, genuinely annoyed that I had spent money to see it in a cinema, let alone IMAX. To break down the plot of the film, it's quite simple. There's an MMA fighter called Cole. He has this mark on his chest that is actually the Mortal Kombat mark. And those who have the Mortal Kombat mark, they are the fighters for the Earth realm, and they have to fight in a tournament of champions and decide the fate of the Earth. Along the way, we have a few other characters that join Cole. We have Kano, we have Sonya, we have Jax, we have Liu Kang, and we have Sub-Zero, Scorpion, the roster of Mortal Kombat characters that everyone knows and loves. So, one of my biggest issues with the film Mortal Kombat, and I do not consider this a spoiler, there is no combat, there's no Mortal Kombat. The whole idea of Mortal Kombat is that there is a big contest of champions, there is a tournament at the, it should build up to a big contest of champions, a big tournament. That isn't present in a film called Mortal Kombat. The Mortal Kombat isn't there. However, that's just where the problems begin. Now, I know that this is an R-rated action film, so I'm not based off a video game, so I'm not going in expecting sort of Citizen Kane or Nomadland. I just want some fun escapism for 2 hours, and I want to just have a good time at the cinema. And this was awful. One thing that baffles me is that this is a big budget Warner Brothers production. However, when watching it, you could not tell this is a big budget film, because everything about this looks and feels cheap. The costumes look very standard and plain. Some of them even look like cosplay you'd see at Comic-Con, for example. Some of them look like costumes you'd see in a sort of historical soap opera. They just look and feel fake and cheap, and that detracted from you want to see your favorite characters on screen in the coolest way possible, not in what looks like crappy homemade costumes, in my humble opinion. On top of this, the special effects were insanely hit and miss. So the Sub-Zero special effects are pretty good, and I think that's about it. Even the gore was very, very clearly CGI the majority of the time, and you could tell the sort of CGI backgrounds and environments were so obvious and they looked so fake. Even simple stuff like a portal effect or lightning or someone's eyes lighting up, it looks like it was done by a high schooler on After Effects. It was abysmal. It was laughable, in all honesty. Jax's arms, the sort of large mechanical robot arms, look hilariously bad in my opinion. So I sat there thinking, well, okay, so a big action martial arts film with lots of special effects has abysmal special effects. The level that rivals sort of Nickelodeon superhero shows Even CW has more consistent effects work than this garbage. And then you go on to the set design. A lot of the sets look the same as each other, especially the ones sort of in like in cities and populated areas, such as Sonia and Sonia's residence and Cole's residence. They look the same in terms of the housing. It feels very cheap, feels very lazy. There's clearly no effort put into the production design, and that's especially apparent when you go to. They have this special sort of training temple ground, and that looks like something out of a high school stage play or a Nickelodeon TV show, because it is absolutely horrendous. Like you can tell that it's like styrofoam blocks, and just no effort was put in. And on the other sets, like the evil planet or whatever, they look really bad as well, because it's majority CGI, but really badly done CGI. So it really sticks out like a sore thumb. On top of this, the cinematography is ghastly. Now in the trailers I thought it looked okay visually. However, the trailers basically put in every decent looking shot, because this is one of the ugliest looking blockbusters I've seen ever. Almost every shot is lit so flatly, so blandly, like it's a sitcom. Like it's, again, I keep comparing it back to like a Nickelodeon show, but it genuinely has the same visual quality of a Nickelodeon show, which is appalling, because this is meant to be a big $1 million movie. And so I sat there thinking, okay, so the visuals look very cheap, the set design looks very cheap, the costumes look very cheap, the CGI is awful and very cheap, and all the actors in the film are basically unknowns, sort of Z to D-listers, sort of people that have only like done small TV shows and barely have any film credits to their name. So there's no A-listers in this project. So where did all this money go? Because it's clear that it's obvious this is a big budget movie. They've done a lot of marketing for it, and again, it's a Warner Brothers R-rated action film, so it's obvious there is money behind this, and a lot of money. But where did all this money go? Because watching it looks awfully cheap and unprofessional and amateur. And it's not like they got a big director to shoot and make this film. They got some first-time director, mainly known for commercials. So it's not like all the money went to him either. So where did all the money for this film go? Where did they spend it? Because it definitely doesn't come out on screen. Look at Godzilla vs. Kong, right? I'm not saying Godzilla vs. Kong is a masterpiece, but it is competent. It is visually competent. It looks good. You can see where the money was spent. There are whole sequences of pure CGI, but they look fantastic. So you can sit there thinking, okay, this film looks expensive. I can see, when you see Godzilla roar and atomic breath happens, or when Kong, punches a building, for example, that looks stunning. It looks fantastic. The CGI is perfect. You know where the money's gone. It's gone to like quality CGI, quality, decent, competent filmmaking. With this, that is not there. So you sit there thinking, where did all the money go? Now, on top of this, we have our boring cast of characters. So we have Cole Young, who is like this MMA fighter well past his prime, and that's about it. Like, I can't tell you a single character trait he has, because he's written to be so uncharismatic, so generic, so bland. It's a cookie cutter character. Then you have Sonia, who is this ex-military person who is exactly what you expect. Same with Jax, same thing. Kano was one of the interesting characters I actually enjoyed at first. He's this rude, mean, pretty awful person, and he is this mercenary who is known for being very rough and violent, and just in general a very unpleasant and annoying, rude character. And at first, he's the most entertaining character on screen. However, too much of some characters can be aggressively annoying. Take Beetlejuice, for example. Beetlejuice is a character that works in small doses. If you were to give him all the screen time, you'd want to shoot yourself afterwards. They do this with Kano. He's alright in small doses, but they dedicate so much screen time to him and they give him so many lines, and every single joke he makes is hilarious because it's just so unfunny. Every single joke this film has, every attempt at humor is so misguided and so unfunny that I found myself laughing at the unintentional comedy in the abysmal writing more than I did the actual planned comedy in this film. In terms of performances, genuinely nothing comes to mind in terms of good performances. The only one that comes to mind, frankly, is I thought Joe Taslim was a pretty good Sub-Zero. I enjoyed his presence on screen. He had a very good, strong screen presence. But that's about it in terms of memorable. Maybe Josh Lawson as Kano, but again, he just got so insufferable and so annoying. And every time his character was on screen, he was insanely insufferable. And it's clear they wanted him to be the comic relief character, but instead he became almost like the Jar Jar Binks of this film, to be very blunt. And last but not least, let's take a look at the writing, the editing, and the action. So the writing is just a lost cause. It is truly awful. It felt like a 12-year-old wrote the script. Now I'm not looking for incredible screenplay, but a competent dialogue, competent story. That's all we need. Nope, none of that. And this film had like 6 writers, and it shows because it's a complete mess. Then you have the film's editing, and the editing, oh my god. This felt like this was edited by someone that just learned how to use Premiere Pro, because every single cut felt jarring. Everything about the editing, the pacing was abysmal. It felt like 4 hours and it was only 2. The ADR and sound design and the way they did audio cuts was laughable. The whole thing, editing-wise, is just shockingly bad. It only gets competent during some of the action scenes, but even then, the action scenes, I would argue, are the best part of the film. And even at that point, those action scenes are just pretty mediocre. And they rely on a final gore moment to make you go, ooh, but even then, they resort to using awful CGI gore, so even the ooh, it's squandered by video game PS3, PS2 looking CGI. So there are a couple of fight scenes I thought were decent, but for some reason they decided that the final fight scene of the film between Sub-Zero and Scorpion should take place in a boxing gym, and the way they bring in Scorpion into the film had me laughing so hard because it was just the dumbest thing ever. On top of this, I think the only genuinely good action sequence was the opening. The opening set in ancient Japan showed so much promise, yet it just goes all downhill from there. Overall, Mortal Kombat is a genuinely abysmal film. It is aggressively unfunny. It is bloated. The action is not very good. At best, it is decent. At worst, it is horrible. The CGI is so poor. The visuals, directing, everything about Mortal Kombat is awful. And it is a frustratingly bad movie, and one that feels so cheap and lame and almost like a weird direct-to-video or direct-to-DVD thing you'll find in the bin at your local supermarket. So Overall, I'm going to give Mortal Kombat a 1 star.